everyone, everyone around and in between. This is Debate Sensei, CEDA edition, where we talk about things relevant to competitive cross-examination debate, policy debate. I have the director of debate from California State University, Long Beach, Devin Cooper. Devin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I'm Jared Kabuga Miller. I am a professor of communications. I'm a speech and debate coach as well. And so just wanted to talk about a number of things with a number of different people from a number of different associations. And so going over, look, we've been talking about very topical things. We've been talking about like some advanced things and some history. And so for the last couple episodes, I'm like, yeah, let's do some basics. And we're doing cross-examination and prep last episode. And this episode, we're talking about rebuttals. And I don't know about you, but just teaching rebuttals just to a student, not a competitive debater, just like what it is and why it exists, how it is different than the first speech has always been a challenge for me. How do you explain rebuttals to somebody who doesn't know the difference, doesn't know a damn thing in debate?
I kind of create a checklist.
Okay.
Based on the style of debate that they do, I try to create a checklist for them to mark off the particular compartments that they need to have in a rebuttal when it comes to like the 2NR or the 2AR. I think the 2NR is a bit easier to coach to as opposed to 2AR because you can't always predict everything that a negative team might say.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a gist of the idea. But I think going for particular arguments, I can give a much more detailed checklist
Mm-hmm.
that they should fill in with like their stuff that's happening around and just stuff that they should have in the 2NR. Like it, I mean, I try to do an overarching round view.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you should be planning for the rebuttal and prep, not for like, the 1NC or any of that stuff. You need to be envisioning what's going to be in the 2NR.
In prep time, how much are you able to script a rebuttal before the round even starts, would you say?
Well,
Oh, yeah?
so
Okay.
here's the thing. So for me, I try not to script my students.
Okay.
Because the problem is now, and as I feel like that is it's a pretty big epidemic that is happening in
Okay.
debate in high school and college, where people are scripting the entire 2AR or 2NR
Oh,
for their
really?
students. Yes, and I just don't think that that is a good practice of teaching people how to learn rebuttaling and how they become how they then become coaches and teach their students. So that's why I like tell my students to create a checklist. Well, I create the checklist for them and give it to them and
Yeah.
explain. And sometimes they say I have like really bad handwriting and stuff when it comes to that. But like I try and I'm like, oh, go type it up then because I'm gonna give you the same one. But for me, I just think that like that is what debate is becoming. It's very scriptocentric.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem because it doesn't allow students to like improvise or to think on their feet or to move with what is happening in the round. And you can tell a lot of times, and I can see this with people who have gone against my students, that I'm watching the round, I'm like, your 2NR sounds exactly like the 2NC.
Oh, right.
Very
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
So,
The okay, if they're scripting rebuttals, does that mean that they have one script that they know they're going to read, or they have like just a select few of them, and then by the time they get there, they know which one they're picking?
well, it depends on the program. Like if you're a really prepared program, have a lot of resources, you probably have multiple,
Okay.
right? But if you are just like kind of one trick pony, you probably have one or two that
Okay.
you go with and that you try to like fill in stuff. But judges that know how to actually flow can tell that there's some stuff that's a little bit off and has been
Mhm.
repeated, and there's been no actual engagement with what has been said to answer the stuff that they said to them.
Okay. Um, I have a different background, so I've said it all the time, but I came from Parley, and we treated the opposition block very differently. than CEDA, right? And one of the reasons is because each side only had one rebuttal. Like after constructives, it's a 4-minute speech and a 5-minute speech, and so I don't know. Like I always push back a lot. I'm saying that those 2 extra rebuttals were sort of critical in why the op block even works the way it does. And that and so like we really were kind of like no new arguments in those rebuttals. But in CEDA, it's treated a little bit differently, wouldn't you say?
No,
Oh
there's
no?
no new arguments and rebuttals. No,
Okay.
unless you are responding to a new argument that they made.
All right.
Right, but the problem is we don't get to be like point of order.
Mm.
We don't get to stop them from reading or
Right,
saying the
right,
new
right.
argument and have the judge in that moment deliberate to say if it's accepted or not. You know.
So, but the thing, okay, so the way that we treat it in NPDA though is like even refutation to the 2AC was supposed to happen in the 2NC, right? You know what I mean? Like, and then it was only rejoinder in the rebuttals in there, and so that's what that was the little subtle difference, really hard to explain to somebody who's not a debater about how that is different. And I just thought like those 2 extra rebuttals, like if you can just layer it up on there, like that 5-minute speech after what is it, 12 minutes would be, oh my God, I couldn't imagine that. Is like the one NR like the hardest speech in the round? I mean, no, the one AR.
One AR, yeah, it will for some people.
Okay.
There's some people that can give amazing 1 ARs. And then there's some people who have to have a little bit of hand holding when it comes to that. And so that's the thing. Like the 1 AR is the hardest speech because you're coming off of a 9-minute speech and a 6-minute speech.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you do it 15 minutes in it. Wait, it's a 5-minute speech, right? Yeah.
6.
No, 6-minute speech. Right. Okay.
Yeah, and high school is 5. The high school numbers are 1 minute less than ours, except for cross
Oh,
section.
right. And I always get them mixed up. There's so many different little formats of debate and little subtle differences in the times and stuff like that.
They want to give the college kids more time to talk.
Yeah.
I mean, but to be honest, it's not like a lot of them are saying anything phenomenal.
But so how do you prepare for, like you said, make a checklist? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is on that checklist and how is it different from a checklist you might have for a constructive speech? And is it like way more acceptable to just script out your constructives?
So this is what I'm trying to tell you, right? I think there is a growing number of us who are considered folks from the before times that really dislike the scripting stuff. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't create innovation with students. It literally is you giving them a speech and they're just reading it and subtly applying stuff as if they have flowed. And some people have not. And so I think that the newer, some newer generations and some people that just believe that scripting out their debaters is a productive way to educate them, I just don't think it's not.
Are people still flowing? Are debaters, not just people, but are debaters flowing? No, really.
Barely. I mean, they do, like they flow on their laptops, but like I feel like if you are flowing on your laptop and you don't know how to flow on paper, I don't think you really know how to flow.
Yeah,
I will stake it on it. Like you don't really know how to flow. Because a laptop, I think, unless you have like a cognitive difference that you need to do on a laptop, then I get it, right? Yeah. But if you are flowing on paper, you are able to like understand the urgency of writing everything down and most of the things down. And so it forces you to get as much as you can. And I can, say that for myself. I pride myself on flowing the shit out of debates because I need to make sure that if somebody try to call me on my decision, be like, where did they say that? I'm like, well, actually here. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then sometimes I think people get lazy with the computer because, they can just like plug in things, but I'm really getting stuff down. So
it seems like those two things are going hand in hand, especially and they're specifically affecting how rebuttals sound, right? And so
it is affecting that, but it's affecting how people judge. Because
Oh.
if you're a judge, you don't know how to really flow, right?
Oh.
You spend most
Yeah.
of your career not really flowing. You're not really getting the in-depth understanding of what's happening in this debate.
Hmm.
And it's just like I sit back and I watch some of the people that I'm on panels with, and I'll be like, And so I feel like a lot of people, if I'm on panel with them and they're flowing on paper, I can see they're real one.
Okay.
Not the people that flow on laptops are not, but if you flowing on paper, you know what's up.
Okay, these scripts that they're reading, are they just, I can't
Coaches
imagine
Productions.
what they're what?
Coaches Productions.
Okay. But I
Hmm.
can't imagine that they're actually engaging with the arguments like on a line by line, right? You know what I mean? Like there's no
They're
way.
not.
Okay.
They're not. they're making themes more so.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're
Man,
asserting other arguments that are offensive to try to like overshadow what's going on. And
okay.
then sometimes the final speech will try to put it all together with their two and R um with their two and R script.
Okay.
So yeah.
Man, I'm having a difficult time imagining this. I might have to see one. I might have to actually
I
watch.
mean, I don't know. I don't like I wouldn't even like I couldn't even imagine who I would ask for that, but you know that there are some debaters. And even on the other side of the aisle, like when it comes to like straight up traditional debaters, they are reading a framework script.
Right.
Like
Okay.
their framework script is just like literally coach's production, hodgepodge of framework arguments from throughout the years. And it's just like it's brutal. And it's just like I just don't think that's real debating. I think you're just reading a script, like, and that script is not allowing you to really engage in the debates at the heart level of it. Like, if you really believe that debate produces these critical thinking skills and these advocacy skills and all that good stuff, why are you reading a script?
Yeah. They're okay. In rebuttals, they're reading framework scripts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And constructives too. There are
Yeah,
people
yeah.
there are people that have like 8 to 9 minute scripted speeches.
I mean, I could see that more. I could anticipate it. I'm not saying I'm down with it. I'm saying I could anticipate that more in constructive than in rebuttals. I'm having a tough time wrapping my mind around. It's like, well, it doesn't really matter what your opponent says. I just know where this debate's going. Like, okay,
They think they just want to force that into the world.
okay.
The judges that are actually flowing know better.
Right. I mean, okay. It seems like the decisions might get a little bit more random especially if you got two teams doing the same shit. If two teams are just reading their scripts,
Yeah. That's why debates become a little bit longer to decide because, some judges don't want to call it out. I will. I
uh,
don't care. Like,
okay.
and I'm just like, if you would like get up off those blocks of that script more, you probably would have a little bit more engagement.
So you go to one tournament, you listen to somebody's script, you go back, you write a response script, and then bring it to the next tournament.
Well,
Or,
for me, like remember, I am anti-script with my
right?
students.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
my students, I like. So what happens is that there's a lot of scouting. There's a lot of
Okay,
people who are
right.
watching and seeing the docs and seeing the email chains and all that good stuff. And they get their coaches up and ready and prepared. Their grad students, their regular coaches, the program directors, and they start writing out everything, like answering arguments full out, making all of the internal links and all that stuff and impacts and saying all types of arguments. And so what happens when they get into the debate with those people again, if they're reading the same arguments or similar arguments, they just read the script.
Right.
They just read
Right.
it.
And so now it's all built for them. And so maybe like, okay, so those larger programs can build out a bunch of custom made scripts for people's
Yeah.
okay, gotcha. And
And
then
that's
that's
why I say to my students that we always have to change and we always have to keep making new arguments because people are not going to be able to keep up with the changing and evolution of our arguments. And they don't understand why I say that is because we're a smaller school. We don't have as many coaches and resources as a lot of these schools that we're competing with that are at the top highest levels. And so that's why I'm like, you have to keep changing your strategy and the articulation of your arguments so you can try to get rid of and swerve a lot of their coaches' scripts.
well, it seems to be working because y'all are doing pretty good. You're all right. You
Mhm.
guys
Yeah, because we got to get them off the script. That's just what it is. And the rebuttal, that's a thing too. Yeah.
Okay.
Tragic.
Do they have these scripts posted, or they keep those kind of?
No,
they keep them close, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Man, because like I'm thinking, it's like, why don't we just, why don't we just have a single unveiling of these things and just give them a single award for writing one script? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, hey, it's a skill. It's good. It's like
Yeah.
arguments, but it seems like it's a weird sort of hybrid between just posting something online, and it's like this online environment is infecting debate. Like you're just posting up your online rant or something like that, your big old screed against what they're saying. Okay. Well, that's I'm interested. I kind of want to, like, if there's anyone that's willing to share like a video of one of these sort of rants to kind of demonstrate that. I know some people don't really like getting videoed, and I understand why. You know what I mean? It's like I totally respect that.
I mean, I think we have videos of us going against people who definitely were scripted out.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm sure they're like, from the Dartmouth round robin and from Texas, we had a lot of recordings of us.
Okay.
So I think that that's something that we can show you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to see the whole damn thing, because I want to see them, like, they just, how do you anticipate? Because policy debates are freaking long. Like,
They are, but like there's a lot of running themes that exist in arguments.
Okay.
And so like if you can tackle those main themes and have something to say against all of them and put it into a script, you can pick and choose and swap out which things. So some of those scripts I'm sure have blanks in it that allow the student to type in something that's going on.
Okay.
But I just don't believe in doing that. Like I did that earlier in my career. Like when I was a grad student, I did it like with some students, and then like I just saw that like they were really successful in the beginning of the year, but then like the second half of the year, stuff starts to drop off because people have known their arguments now, and then you got to keep changing that script. And then from that, I was just like, I think this is not the best way. Like, because at that point, I was just trying to prove myself that I could like qualify a team to the NDT when I was at Fullerton, and I mean, I did, but it was just like at what expense though? Like, how did they learn?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's it's an interesting sort of world, because limited prep debate is sort of my home. You know what I mean? It's like, and the idea of knowing exactly what's happening in rebuttals by the time. Anyways, this topic. So what I want to do is there a way to take these sort of general concepts about rebuttals and their unique role, and prepare them on the nuclear topic? Have you come across any sort of patterns or themes as you to prepare for?
I mean, to be honest, a lot of these debates are very similar.
Okay.
And when you're having the clash debates between teams that are more traditional versus teams that are more critical, those debates will usually come down to framework, right?
Okay.
But the portion of framework that becomes about the topic is more so how we prioritize topic education. Like, what does the resolution mean? Why learning about nuclear debates are good or bad, and why that scholarship is good. And like sometimes people talk about things like disarm education, like learning about how we should focus on disarming nuclear weapons as a pedagogical approach to stuff. And so those kind of debates go down in that direction. But the traditional debates amongst each other are just trying to figure out how we stop some type of catastrophic nuclear weapon
Right.
happening
So
when it comes to foreign countries and stuff.
So I want to make sure I'm following this. So like someone comes up with a fairly traditional disarm AF,
Mm-hmm.
and then the negative critiques them, and they so the AF pivots to a disarm education
And framework.
Okay. Oh, framework, but like, so they answer the framework, but it seems like they're almost like doing a permutation.
Well, they're trying to say that the model of debate that they do can encompass the criticism because they're doing it in a more practical and legalistic way, as
Okay.
opposed to the K that is probably like, academic, ivory tower, blah, blah, blah. Or it could be tactics, or it could be like abolition focus, which is one of the ways that we've approached a lot of the disarm debate, to be like, your disarm is only something that's very contingent. It's not related to or structured towards a consistent practice and advocacy of disavowing nuclear weapons and their effects on people of color and other entities. And that mindset of abolition needs to be the focus, not just disarming nuclear weapons, because they're just disarming nuclear weapons and stopping there. But what we're saying is that abolitionist mindset is one that is trying to abolish all systems of oppression that have been rooted and created the conditions for nuclear weapons to exist in the first place.
So do people tend to try to go for permutations on those arguments though? Is that okay? Okay. So how do you answer that? Like first off, what does it sound like? Because I remember doing perms on critiques.
Let's do both.
Oh yeah, just okay. But do this type of debate and your type of debate.
Well, it's more so they're trying to just perm the advocacy, like to say that the alternative of the K is encompassed within the affirmative. The affirmative is already doing it. The affirmative's practical action should be prioritized first, right? Because it has more of a legalistic attachment to how we can literally disarm nuclear weapons. So the K is just like a thought experiment or some grassroots stuff that doesn't really come into fruition without the F.
Okay. I mean, but they're trying to root it in like, hey, this is educational. We're teaching people about this stuff, and then okay, and so.
But the actual mechanisms within law and policy is what they're saying is what comes first, and which is the type of education that needs to be geared towards when we think about disarm.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily come first in education. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't necessarily like in debate, it doesn't necessarily come first. If they're really trying to do a perm, I don't know why they're still trying to prioritize one over the. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm hearing this wrong or something like that. That seems to undermine.
No, I mean that's what it is. They're just saying that like we need to engage in, diagnosing a policy and figuring out if it is a good policy option or not.
Okay.
If it's a desirable policy option steeped
Okay.
in revolution. And so if the K is not an alternative policy option, then why are we debating this? Like it should be.
Oh, that's what they mean by alternative, right? So once you get into when they make demands for alternatives.
Well, so when a negative proposes alternative, when a negative proposes alternative, the affirmative is saying, oh my gosh, am I getting tongue tied? When the negative proposes an alternative with their K, the affirmative will say the only possible correct alternative is through a policy structure, a different alternative that is policy steeped, not one that is like out there abolitionism, academic, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're saying like if you don't want us to disarm, then you need to say no first use or sole purpose or create disads to disarming, like deterrence, ally prolift, stuff like that.
Okay.
Assurances.
I know people call it policy debate, but it's not called policy debate. It's called cross-examination debate. Yeah. So I don't. Yeah.
Because like I think what happened is that like after like the merger and all that other stuff, it just becomes policy because like people still will say NDT like when we're referring to like the NDT. And they'll say CEDA when they're referring to the national tournament as well. But no one really says cross-examination debate.
Right. They just say
that anymore. They say policy.
It's officially the event is called policy debate. Am I right about it? Okay, cool. All right.
It used to be like CEDA debate or NDT debate, back to one of our initial episodes. But now people who are like not in the policy debate circles will call it still CEDA or cross-examination debate. So
gotcha.
It's way different now. It's just policy.
But it seems all those arguments about like what the role of the debate is and everything like that, it's still dependent on this concept of fiat. Like we need to pretend like we're passing laws in order for us to
And then the K is saying no.
And
Fiat
okay,
93. It's not
yeah,
useful. It's fake. It's
I
a
was yeah,
game.
I was hoping that like there is some like developments in the last 10, 15 years about
No, well, so this is the thing is it's like fiat has still become like a big thing in debates now. I even listen to my students debating fiat, and I'm like, wow, it's crazy. Like for a point in time, people didn't make a big deal out of it, like, but now they have to because that's the way the judges are thinking and evaluating rounds now. You know,
okay.
it's like if you win access to fiat and as fiat's good, then it's like hard to weigh your K and all that good stuff.
So in rebuttals, you're a critical team. Let's just say you're on the
Mhm.
negative, right? Like, make it kind of easy. Your rebuttals get a little easier to kind of prepare for. Am I wrong about this, or like is this
No, because you gotta have it. You have to attack several things about a straight up F
okay?
that judges want. You gotta be answering their framework. You gotta be winning the case outweighs. They get access to their impacts. You gotta be winning that your impact is like the root cause or has some controlling mechanism of the uniqueness of the affirmative. You gotta be winning like some access to how the alternative is a prior question to the affirmative. Like it's a lot of things and different formulas that certain judges want to see and hear that becomes the issue. And
Okay,
so there's no like uniform way to evaluate that stuff. It's like people want to say different things. Like for me as a judge, I don't really hold people to have to like win an alternative in order to win the K. But a
mm,
lot of judges that are really straight up in policy that have existed in the activity for a while, they want you to win the alternative and say why the alternative is good and comes first. And you have to win that in order to win their ballot. I think that's kind of silly because it's just like
yeah. I mean, if I don't know if you win on framework, what
now
does
you
that?
win on if you win
Yeah,
on framework, you win the impact outweighs, and you win that like your type of education is better and suited, and that their education is bad, and that they make the world worse as opposed to better, then you should win. Like I don't get
yeah. So like the whole they make the world worse type of thing. Like
it.
I don't know. Like that seems like a weird like a fabricated burden. I don't know if that's if you agree with that at all, but
No, I do. Like they definitely folks hold certain teams to a higher standard when it
okay,
comes to them debating. So
okay.
it's a big thing.
So, it, would you say that there are two? Like it seems like we're coming down to a lot of teams are from a traditional, and a lot of teams are critique. Would you say that those manifest themselves into two different ways of looking at rebuttals or preparing for rebuttals?
I think it's more multiple because you also have people that are in between that are like more flex.
Okay.
That will sometimes they'll read like straight up arguments from the negative and they'll read a critical AF or vice versa. They'll read a straight up AF and read Ks in a negative. And so it all becomes about what the debate becomes centered on in the end.
Hmm.
Because and also I think there's different rebuttal styles based on how fast somebody is.
Mm,
Because if you're not like extremely fast, you got to learn how to be able to cover with grouping of arguments as opposed to like being able to go toe to toe with them on line by line. And
yeah.
so it just all depends on the style as well as who the debater is, as well as what is their way of approaching debate um, on a refutation level, and that kind of determines what the rebuttals will be. But the thing is that oftentimes what is good and beneficial is to read the judge's philosophy and how they feel about rebuttals and arguments in order to tailor your rebuttals to that. So it's like every time my students have a judge that is new to them, or even if we had them for a while and we are looking at them in the sense of a round that's with a big team, we
Hmm.
want to make sure that we really do the things that they want in order to like get their ballot in that round. So I think that judge adaptation has some level of, credence in this conversation.
Well, then that brings us full circle because you said that you like creating checklists rather than scripts.
Hmm.
Does that mean you have different checklists for different judges and you're able to anticipate them pretty easy?
Yeah.
Oh,
Based on what their judge philosophy says. Some
okay.
people will write their judge philosophy in a very strategic way to say nothing at all. we don't really trust those type of judges. Those type of
Okay.
judges, yeah, those type of judges are wild cards, and they definitely don't want to be catered to.
Okay. Okay.
Except for if it's like a larger stylistic thing.
Mhm. All
So
right. All right. Well, this has definitely been illuminating and a little confusing at moments, right? Like I said, I want to I want to see how in the hell people can script it out that far in advance. And
yeah.
so I'd love to. Thank you very much, Devin, for helping me understand some of this, and we'll talk in the future.
All right, you're welcome.